Assalamu alaikum. This is CAIR on the Air. My name is Robert McCaw. I'm the National Government Affairs Director for the Council on American Islamic Relations. Today's program is CAIR on the Air, Next Steps in the Fight Against Discriminatory Surveillance. To preface this program, back in November, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments in the case FBI versus Fazaga, a landmark case brought by three Muslims represented by the California chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, a number of other legal groups, and they were challenging the FBI's secret spying on this Muslim community in California just because of their religion, which was a violation of the Constitution, other statutory laws. The plaintiffs in that case asserted that the FBI cannot escape accountability for violating their religious freedom by just invoking state secrets. Well, on March 4th, the Supreme Court ruled, and today we are going to talk to Amr Shabbaik, CAIR Los Angeles Managing Civil Rights Attorney, Dina Chehata, who is CAIR Los Angeles Civil Rights Attorney, and of course, Sheikh Yassir Fazaga, the namesake of this case, one of the main three plaintiffs, who's going to tell us what this case is all about, what the court's ruling means for not only him and his fellow plaintiffs, but the Muslim community. So with that, I'd like to introduce today's speakers and get them on the program. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Walaikum salam. Good to be with you.
We're very excited to have you on this program to help better understand what this Supreme Court ruling means. I'd just like to start it off with a few questions. The first for Sheikh Fazaga. Please tell us about what you and your community experienced with the FBI, what led up to this case.
It's been some time now, and for those of you who've seen me 16 years ago, I had a lot more hair, and it also was not as gray. It used to be darker than this. Newlywed back in 2006, find out that the FBI, some agent made a remark on the paper that they're spying and surveilling the Muslim community. As the imam back then, we become very concerned. We reached out to CAIR and other, leaders in the community, and we actually held a town hall meeting with the FBI, and we asked these questions, and we were very blunt in the questions that we asked, and the FBI denied every single of our questions, that they're not spying on us, they're not surveilling us, they're not scrutinizing the Muslim community in any way, shape, or manner, that they want better relationships with us. Not knowing that during that same time, the FBI actually had informants working in the community. And the sad part is, when you speak like this, and this is so crucial for people to understand. To many people, the masjid is not just a place of prayer. To many people, the masjid is their second family. This is like their biggest social, event. Some people come to the masjid every single day, several times a day. This is their second family. The most important element in any healthy human relationship is trust. When you do not sense that trust, you break the social fabrics of the community. And you find out that, there are informants in the community, people who pretend to be your friends, people who pretend to be your brothers in humanity and your brothers in faith. And then all of a sudden you find out that, the masjid is bugged. People are listening to your conversations. People are recording to your conversations. And of all the people, it's the government that is supposed to be protecting your very rights. Now is the entity that is violating your very rights. And to me, that was very dear and near, because I'm a counselor. I'm a licensed clinician now. Back then I was still working on that. But people were coming to me, and, people in counseling sessions, they share the most intimate aspects of their lives, and sadly sometimes it can be compromising, can be embarrassing, and especially there is a stigma around mental health. And to me, I promise my clients full confidentiality, only to find out that potentially my office is being bugged. And I remember I would come to the office, I would lift up the phone, I would look behind the monitor, I'd look into the lights. I would actually unplug the outlets on the wall just to see maybe they did leave something in there, and it became a very frustrating experience. There was a time when a brother told me that, what, he had to lift the carpet under just to see if they left listening devices there. And that is not a way to live. That's not a way to conduct business. That's not a way to do proper counseling. But alhamdulillah, despite all of these challenges, the community rebounded, and we fought back, and we're very grateful to the help that we got from CAIR, from the ACLU, and the support that we got from the community.
Thank you for sharing that. I think your experiences are a microcosm of what's happened to the broader Muslim community, where our trust has been abused by the government. You told us a little bit about how this affects you, how this affected some of the broader community in California. Can you give us a little bit more background about this case, in particular, the spying that you were challenging, and what happened in the courts leading up to the Supreme Court case?
I can take that, Sheikh Fazaga,
Sure.
if you like me to,
Sure.
just to give a little bit of background on the case. And thank you, Sheikh Fazaga, because he really gives an important look into the personal impact of this. But just some background for our listeners or viewers. We know that, shortly after 9/11, law enforcement started figuring out how to map Muslim communities. It started with the NYPD in New York, and it was modeled all across the country. And the very problematic thing, Robert, was that law enforcement was really looking at Muslim communities in the sense of tracking regular activities and behaviors and appearances of everyday average Muslims. They weren't looking at the likelihood of criminal behavior. They were just looking at practices that are constitutionally protected. So some of the things they were looking at were whether someone was going to the masjid, whether someone was wearing Islamic clothing, whether someone was having a beard. And in Southern California, the FBI started this operation called Operation Flex. And so between 2001 and 2006, they started spying on Muslims in Southern California. And some of the Muslims were, Muslims that Sheikh Fazaga was counseling. And their objective under Operation Flex was to gather a list of mosques in the area, collect names of religious leaders like Sheikh Yassir, amassing a list of the members of the mosques, religious organizations. They interrogated tons of people in the area, and then they were also planting bugs and cameras. And with this case specifically, they hired a paid informant called Craig Monte to go into mosques in Southern California, infiltrate them. He posed as a Muslim convert, and his specific instructions, Robert, were collect as much information on as many people in the Muslim community as possible. There was no qualifying characteristic. It was just whoever is Muslim, not whoever is Muslim and possibly committing a crime, just whoever is Muslim. And so he went in and he literally gathered hundreds of phone numbers, thousands of emails, and he had hundreds of hours of video and audio recordings. He would go into the masjids and leave his keys. He had a little fob and it would record conversations. And he was recording these people. And in May 2007, he professed to wanting to take violent action. So he escalated his ideology as a Muslim convert to say that now I want to take violent action. And thankfully, because we have so many people in the American Muslim community that are lawful, law-abiding citizens, they were very frightened and they reported them, like Sheikh Yassir was referring to. And essentially what happened is, in this case, we filed a case, Robert, where we were alleging unconstitutional searches, a burden on religious practice, and unlawful discrimination on the basis of religion. And I'm going to take you all the way up until what happened at the Supreme Court. And I think can talk more about that. But in our initial filings, these are the things we allege, that you're essentially, surveilling Muslims just based on their religion in contravention of their constitutional rights. And the defendants at that point, in our first filing in the district court, they moved to dismiss our claims in part based on the state secret doctrine. They allege that the information being sought could reasonably be expected to lead to significant national security harm, and that because of the state secret doctrine, they shouldn't have to be compelled to disclose it. And we appealed the decision of the district court. We took it all the way up to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. They dismissed the holding of the district court, and the Ninth Circuit found that FISA displace the state secrets doctrine because FISA sort of governs electronic surveillance. And so the government appealed that, and that leads us to the Supreme Court.
Okay, well, again, this was all a horrible violation of our privacy. I know it was that even much more worse than was even discussed here and now. This was all directed by the government, by the FBI. How did the Supreme Court rule then?
So I'll go ahead and jump in here. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Omar.
As Dina mentioned, the ruling in the Ninth Circuit involved kind of this interplay between FISA, which is the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, and this common law privilege called the state secrets privilege. So we're going to get a little bit into the weeds here, but it's just important to remember that this ruling by the Supreme Court was a very narrow legal ruling. Essentially overturning what the Ninth Circuit held and saying that FISA does not displace the state secrets privilege. Again, as Dina mentioned, state secrets is a privilege that allows the government to say, look, this evidence that's involved in this case is something that would damage national security. It should not be used in this case. The government went so far, as Dina mentioned, in the lower courts to say the case should not go forward at all. It should be dismissed. FISA, which was passed in 1978, is a congressional statute that imposes limitations on government surveillance. This statute was passed at a time where there was widespread, unchecked government surveillance of civil rights leaders, of different communities within the country. So FISA provided, or it does provide, and was passed in order to provide such an avenue to allow courts to review any such surveillance and to make a determination as to whether that surveillance was lawfully obtained. So again, the issue was whether that specific part of FISA displaced the state secrets privilege and would thus allow the courts to review the documents that the government is claiming is a secret under the provisions of FISA. So the Supreme Court held, again, very, very narrowly, that FISA does not displace the state secrets privilege. Again, the Supreme Court did not take the position of the government that the case should be dismissed. It also did not decide whether or not the government's evidence in this case and the evidence that they gathered on individuals like Sheikh Fazaga was actually privileged. So again, it's a very narrow ruling that while it is not what we wanted, it does allow us to continue to pursue the claims that we filed back in 2011.
And could you either of you expand what are these next steps that CAIR-LA, that its partners are going to take? Where are you taking it from there?
Yeah, so now the case is being remanded back to the Ninth Circuit, which again is the middle court, the middle federal court in California. And we are going to be waiting for direction from the Ninth Circuit as to what they would like us to brief them on and argue before them in terms of kind of the next steps. So we have to wait for that, and then we conduct our briefing in that, and then potentially it gets remanded back to the lower courts, and we continue to kind of make the arguments that we've been making. So it's another long fight. Our partner, attorney, co-counsel Ahilan mentioned that at this point we've taken this long kind of detour, but we're back at square one. So it's taken us all these years to kind of just again begin at square one, but we get to continue to pursue these claims and fight against the unlawful surveillance of the FBI at this point. And part of that is also continuing to educate the community on the things that did happen and continue to happen to this day as well.
And just asking then, what is the broader implication of this narrow ruling pertaining to the issues of government surveillance that continue to happen pertaining to American Muslim civil rights as we're challenging these broad forms of surveillance?
Yeah, again, it's a very narrow ruling that basically precludes us from arguing in the future that the parameters of FISA in terms of reviewing electronic surveillance should govern situations like this. That's really what the ruling is about. So it's very, very narrow. It's not what we wanted, but it is a narrow ruling, so we can continue to pursue sort of the other claims that we've made early on. This ruling does not definitively answer, obviously, all the issues of surveillance that Dina had mentioned that kind of stemmed after 9/11 and that we continue to see to this day. It's, again, a very narrow ruling that a lot of these issues need to continue to be fought against, need to continue to be litigated. So,
honestly, it really just beckons the need for reform of state secrets privileges. I think when Congress drafted these FISA rules, they had this specific type of abuse in mind, in that state secrets privileges are too broad, too expansive, and they're corrosive to our civil rights. I want to kind of turn away from the legal arguments and ask again the Sheikh what he would like to see would happen moving forward in this case, and in the broader struggle against discrimination and surveillance. What is your community doing? Sheikh, I think you're on mute.
Apologies. So
No
part of
problem.
what you said,
I do it all the time.
part of what you said there about this is not an isolated story. This is a story. Everywhere I went, here is something common that was said to me. I heard about your Supreme Court case. Let me tell you what happened in our community. And people would start telling me like horror stories about what people went through in their community. And I'm listening to this and I'm saying, oh my God, this is like my story. Now the hope is that this speaks to not just us and what happened to us, also about many people who really did not get their day in court, or the stories were never heard. So my hope is that please let us not stop fighting. So that's just going to be number one. Number two, please document these stories. When CAIR reach out to people and say, please tell us what happened. Please tell us about the time that the FBI reached out to you. Please tell us about the time that you were pulled over at the airport. Please tell us. These are really, really important points that the importance of it is so great. That's really imperative that when these things happen, please share them. These stories are stories to be documented, they're stories to be told. Something that Dina said, the FBI did not come looking for specific criminals because of a certain behavior. Craig Monteith come and he would have a camera on his button and he would walk around the parking lot taking pictures of all the license plates of the cars that are out there. He would pretend to be, greeting the parishioners, worshippers, people who come to Friday, and he's doing nothing but just taking pictures of the people who are there. This was not collecting evidence. This was just profiling the Muslim community. And this is not just about the Muslim community in Mission Viejo, Irvine, Orange County. This story happens to be the story throughout the Muslim community in the United States. So to me, please let's not stop the fight. Let's bring and speak about these abuses. Second point that I also find to be disheartening is, and I say this in all honesty, had it not been the support of CAIR and the ACLU, I don't think that anybody had the ability to last legally for the past 15 years. There just nobody has that type of resources to do this for. Now you said, Amr just said that, chances are we're going to go back to the Ninth Circuit, maybe go back again to the lower courts. Or we're looking at how many more years? I don't know how many more years, but this is not something that is just going to be settled in the next few months. Who has the ability to survive legally in this environment? And to me, it's just mind boggling that it took 15 years to go back to where this case originated from. So it's very important that we don't stop the fight. We document what is going on. And I know, by virtue of what's happening around the world, the case is no longer as visible as what's happening in the Ukraine or in Palestine or in Yemen or what have you. But I really wish that, these programs keep the case alive. And inshallah, that's what we plan to do.
We know cases of surveillance like this continue to happen in the Muslim community. I think the FBI is getting a little smarter in how they're surveilling us, but the surveillance is persistent and it continues to exist. You already hit a couple points on what you should do if you think you're under surveillance, and that's to report it to groups like CAIR, the ACLU, other civil liberties groups. But Sheikh, I'll start with you just to bookend in case you want to add anything and bring it to our two representatives from CAIR-LA, Amr, Dina, asking you all, what's your advice to the American Muslim community in dealing with issues of surveillance, especially when it happens in your community?
I can start, man. If one thing I've learned from this case is, as a community, when we come together, it really does boost our sense of courage. Receiving the support that I did, I learned not to be afraid. One thing that we learned from this case is that people were coerced into becoming informants against their will because supposedly the FBI held some embarrassing, secrets about them. And I tell the community, look, man, we all have skeletons in our closets. We all fight our own demons. Because the FBI found out about my demons, somehow me working for them against my will is not going to make that make that right. Craig Montiel was told to find out, what the dirty laundry of people, and that's really, really sad because the government is looking to use this information against us, literally blackmailing us. So I'd say, please remember, whether it be ethical issues, whether it be legal issues, I've been told about people, we found out that he has a second wife. We found out that he was not paying taxes on time. We found out that his immigration papers were not going as well. These may all be cases, but that does not give the government the right to pressure you to work for them against your will and go and commit these crimes against your own community. So please, 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 if you happen to be that individual that has been coerced, that has been doing this against your will, please remember that is not right. It is unacceptable. And if it's done against your own will, it is also illegal and unethical.
And I would just add, before we hear from Amr and Dina, that the worst thing the FBI can hear back from you is getting a call from a CAIR attorney, because their whole plot is now exposed. Their plot to, leverage information against you is now in the open. And while it's between the FBI, your CAIR attorney, and you, the FBI doesn't want to get snagged on anything. They don't want hassle. They just want to find another target. So they're more than likely going to leave you alone than pursue. I can't guarantee that. I'm just saying the worst thing that they could get back is a call from a CAIR attorney rather than you saying, yeah, I'll become an informant. Amr, Dina, what do you have to add to that?
I'll go ahead and add a few things that I think are important for community members to know, because, us as attorneys, we get a lot of information about what's happening in our communities. And for the Southern California community specifically, I want American Muslims to know that surveillance is still ongoing, unfortunately. So we continuously see people in our communities, Muslims, being harassed, interrogated, intimidated by the FBI, pressured to become informants. The FBI are going around knocking on doors and using the fact that they're FBI to intimidate people to talk to them. We see the FBI using asylum applications, for example, illegal permanent residence applications, citizen applications, as tools to pressure individuals to cooperate with them and talk to them and become informants. Mm-hmm. We know that American Muslims are facing unexplained travel delays and heightened security screenings, searches, and interrogations. And so we want American Muslims to be smart and to know that what happened with Sheikh Yassir and the other plaintiffs in our case is still happening today. And we want them to know that, you know, of course, as American Muslims, like all law-abiding Americans, we, of course, want to make sure our communities are safe, right? We want to make sure our communities are safe and free of illegal activity. But what we do not want is for law enforcement and other government agencies to profile us simply because we are Muslim. And that is a constitutionally protected right. So I want every person who is suspicious that they are being surveilled or that who has the FBI knocking on your door and law enforcement knocking on your door, showing up at your messages, please contact a legal representative. We at CAIR are happy to help you, and there are other organizations. Make sure you never talk to law enforcement or the FBI alone. Make sure you have representation and that you know your rights.
And Dina, before you leave, just the thing about that is that it's so intimidating, and you know, here's the FBI, and what do? And I'm afraid that if I don't give in or I don't talk, please remember this is a legal right. You can ask for. You're not refusing to talk to them. You're just saying that, look, I can't talk to them by myself. I need an attorney to be present there. The less you talk, the more you walk. You know, I'm sorry, but remember that case when people like myself, English is not our first language. FBI asks the guy if he is naturalized. Did not know what the word naturalized meant, but he knew what natural meant, so he said yes. He was only a green card holder. He was not a citizen. That is lying to a federal agent that can land you 6 years in jail. This is how desperate these people are. They're looking for these types of issues to just get people and intimidate people.
That's an excellent point, Sheikh Yassir. And yeah, for anyone who's listening, just so you know, legally you are never obligated to speak to law enforcement or the FBI. Never, right? You're not obligated. You have a Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. But legally, if you do talk to law enforcement, as Sheikh Yassir mentioned, it's a crime for you to lie, to willfully or unintentionally misrepresent facts and information. And there is criminal charges that could be attached to that. So that's why it's really important for people to know that, number one, you don't ever need to talk to law enforcement. But number two, if you talk to legal counsel, we can better help you and advise you and inform you of your rights. It's the smart thing to do, and you're not violating any sort of legal statute or anything. In fact, you are taking advantage of the rights that make this country, you know, one of the places that we all love to live, and we want to protect the civil liberties that exist for you and me and everyone.
Absolutely. Amr, anything to add about dealing with the issues of surveillance, or Dina hit it?
I honestly think that, yeah, Sheikh Yassir and Dina covered it very, very well. Just one quick thing to note, you know, as Sheikh Yassir mentioned, these situations can be intimidating and you can find yourself not knowing what to do. Just remember, don't talk. Tell the individual, the FBI agent that has approached you, you know, I'm going to have my attorney contact you, give me your business card. That's it. Don't engage in any further discussion. And for the majority of the times of the cases that Dina and I have dealt with in the past few years, CAIR gets involved. We contact the FBI agent, let them know that we are representing this individual, and the FBI agent will essentially kick rocks, go away. Because they, for the most part, the majority of these cases, they are large-scale fishing expeditions. There's no indication of any type of unlawful behavior. There's usually nothing more serious than them simply trying to talk to this individual because this individual is Muslim. They practice, they go to the masajid, you know, they have a lot of friends and family who are Muslim, and that's really what it boils down to. So again, anything else in this discussion, just remember you have the right to remain silent, and you do not need to speak with them, because oftentimes speaking can get you into more hot water than simply keeping your mouth shut.
Thank you, Amr. And, you know, we'll close just hearing from Sheikh Yassir. You are the namesake of this case. It is going to be studied by law students for years to come. The legal outcome has still not been decided yet, but any spiritual words of hope for our audience as they are, watching this program and may be somewhat dismayed at the current state of affairs. I know had this happened at 50 churches in 50 states across the country, the government would no longer tolerate it and this would have been shut down. But this is definitely something that Muslims are dealing with, and that we are fighting not only for our rights, but all other Americans and their rights to protect our houses of worship, our freedom of speech, and the ability to assemble. Do you have any, kind of parting words of hope for our audience?
Sure, and thank you for that. Thank you for that question. So remember that as a community, part of our deen is that we enjoin the good and that we forbid evil. The goodest of goods, the best of goods are shared goods. No good is good if it's only good for us. The best of goods are absolutely shared goods. And the best good that we can share with people, in addition to our deen, is our understanding of the sense of justice, that this is a right that belongs to every single human being out there. And we don't want to be involved when only it concerns our community. That just makes us a selfish community if we only care about our rights. Remember, the more we protect the right of others, we're also protecting our own rights. In the Islam, we are taught that the main reason why Allah sent messengers, Allah tells us, لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ, to establish to people, the idea of to teach people how to establish justice. It is the most important element in keeping any healthy, good society. And we need to fight for this. Number two, please keep hope alive. It's very easy to lose hope and go into despair in this current situation. We know that in the hadith, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, Al-fa'lu husnul khuluq. He said that to be an optimist is the best of, that's like the best character to have. And like we said, it's very easy to be a pessimist at this point, given what is going on. And also remember, just keep fighting, because the point is not to win. The point is that you remain on this journey, that you are attempting to do something that is good. You mentioned that the case has my name. It was nice initially, but then when it went to the Supreme Court, it was no longer Fazaga versus FBI, was the FBI versus Fazaga. And then I said, oh, something is going on. Something is going on here. But like I said, this is not the worst story in the Muslim community. But we're hoping that we use this story to be a catalyst to give people the opportunity to tell their story. Please tell your story with us. Jazakumullah khair.
Wise words. Jazakallah khair, everyone, for joining today's program, for enlightening us about this struggle, not only in California but at the Supreme Court, and how it's all going to play out. We're going to have you back on the program as this case proceeds. I want to thank you all again for coming. For our audience, please tune in every week for CAIR on the Air. We're going to get more breaking stories like this and good discussions to be had, and spiritual insights too. So thank you, everyone. To you and our audience, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Alaikum assalam.